You're watching Past the Wire TV.
A very good Sunday morning to you, Sunday morning coffee on Past the Wire TV. I am Big Race Jim. Shout out Shorebet Coffee, Amwager, Pleasant Acres, Spendthrift Farm, Tampa Bay Downs, celebrating a century of racing, kicking off December. I guess last week was December too. Was it? No, it wasn't. So this is the first Sunday in December. And the first Sunday in December as we celebrate and say farewell to the last Cigar Mile at Aqueduct, I think, right? I was telling my wife yesterday after the races that there'll probably be, I was looking around at the track feed yesterday and there was like 10 people out on the apron yesterday, it seemed like. And I don't know what the weather was like up in New York, but I imagine it was pretty cold. 70 degrees down here in central Texas yesterday, which was crazy. Um, but I imagine there'll be tens of thousands of people at Aqueduct on closing day. And what a shame! What a shame! One of the great gems of horse racing in North America going to be closing its doors in the next year, and that's going to be a real bummer for New York racing and for racing as a whole as they bulldoze that place and um, expand that casino there, probably put up another hotel or some apartments or expand the airport parking or whatever the heck they end up doing there. But that'll be sad. I love the Big A. It's my favorite track. Anyway, enough about that. Let's dive into the racing. What I want to do is uh, kind of do two things. We'll show you a replay of the Remsen and show you a replay of the Cigar Mile, and then we'll kind of look at those two things sort of in tandem with the pace points. So let's pull up the pace points first for the Remsen, and you know, keep in mind, a lot of these horses in the Remsen, not a huge body of not a huge body of work to go off of, right? So our rankings, not a ton of data points to go off of, but they were pretty accurate with how the race shaped up, right? And we'll see it here in a second, but Balboa had to come all the way from the outside in that 10 spot to try and make the lead, and did a pretty decent job to sit second. Talkin did the same thing and was sitting fourth early. Day one starter had the rail, so you knew he was going to send. And he was up on the lead, and Paladin was just kind of sitting in behind all of those. So and Renegade was just a little bit further back. So looking at our ratings, pretty spot on with how the early pace of this race set up. So let's take a look at the early part of this race. All right, so like I said, you see the 10 and the 11 really rush up there, and the 1 from the rail. Paladin is right there, right? So all of those 4 are right in the mix to set that early pace, just as we predicted with the pace points. And you know, pretty typical, pretty typical into the first turn and along the backstretch. But then we see Renegade here running like running like a renegade, and it was almost a winning move. So, all right, you see the 9 on the outside there, probably in the 4 path out there in the blue, and he starts to rush up there, right there, right, and I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna drop it, and I'm gonna bring the pace points back up. So Renegade here, interestingly enough, on our pace points sheet, didn't have him rated as a super high late late pace, excuse me, a late pace ranking. But guess who we did? Paladin, uh, Courting, who put in a nice, decent move. Um, right. So let's take a look. Let me get back over here. That and this. All right, so Renegade comes up there in the 9. We figured that Balboa and Day One Starter would start to weaken. I mean, to Balboa's credit, hung on pretty well, and it looked like for most of the day, the horses that were up on the pace early, ran pretty well. But kind of a rematch of these two, the 2 and the 9, their original matchup together, and Paladin just kind of, listen to Chris Griffin there, round out the Remsen. A little bit of a rematch of the first matchup between those two, Paladin and Renegade, and really lined up with how these rankings shaped up, right? Had that early pace set up pretty much how we lined it up. And if you were listening to last week's show, again, this isn't like, okay, we think Balboa is going to be in first, we think Talkin's going to be in second, we think Day One Starter is going to be in third, we think Renegade's going to be in fourth. That's not what these mean, right? This is just a ranking of who we think is going to be setting the initial pace, um, through the first point of call of the race into the second point of call in the race. So, in a race like this, that was a mile and an eighth. Um, through the first quarter, first half of a mile, and it's shaped up pretty spot on. So then you come over to the last fraction, and in the simplest way to explain this is who we think is going to be doing the best running late, and this was bang on, right? Who ran better in at the end of that race than Paladin? right? And again, it's not Chambersville is going to win this race because he's ranked number one, right? There's a million other factors. Chambersville didn't have a great start. Um, and that was pretty much that. But Paladin ran down the lane like a freight train and blew everybody away. Um, and our pace points had that pretty bang on. So just another explanation of how to use this as a tool in your handicapping alongside your normal handicapping process. All right. So if you're looking at it and you see, okay, um, uh, here's how I see the first, three quarters of the race shaping up. Uh, and I'm between a couple of horses. Who do I think is going to be running? Who's going to have the strongest kick towards the end of the race? And you're between, two or three horses. Perhaps the pace points in this last fraction rank might be a difference maker alongside your normal handicapping process to get you to Paladin. Um, with that two ranking, uh, perhaps. All right, let's move on to the Cigar Mile, where again a lot of similar things, right? Micah ran out in front, and again, like I said earlier, I think watching the races yesterday, not to say horses from coming from off the pace weren't making up ground because they were, right? But I don't think you wanted to be super far back. It looked like the horses that were within, either on the lead or within at least within a few lengths of the lead were um, were staying within a few lengths of the lead, and or making up that ground late. So um, Micah, I think, ran a really bang up race in the Cigar Mile, and we'll see it here in a second. Uh, Bishop's Bay as well, up close throughout. Crazy Mason again. It's like, how many different riders are you going to try, and they all run the same exact race, and this horse always just leaves himself way too much to do. And just can't get there, despite running running his eyeballs out in the last half mile of of the race. Um, and here's another really good example, right? Like when you have a horse like Micah, a horse like Bishop's Bay, and they're going to put a gap on the field, right, with this Phileas Fog, right? And they're going to put this gap on the field, and you come over and you look at the the pace points for the early, and you're like, this horse is not going to be an early pace factor at all. And then you look, and you're like, there's probably at least a couple of horses that are going to be better towards the end of the race than this horse. At 9 to 5, this horse is a total toss for me, and was yesterday. And of course, it's easy to say that now, right? Because the horse did not run very well, was a complete non-factor, and it's a day it's a day later. But that was my handicapping process yesterday, and in large part because of what the pace points are telling me. Non-factor early, a couple of horses probably better late. Not going to include in my multi-race wagers. Don't see as a win contender, especially as the second choice on the morning line. So let's take a look.
For the Cigar Mile. And they're off.
Right. So the two, like we said,
From the far outside, and here's Mika with those
rushes up.
Mika is now a neck in front. Phileas Fogg is in between horses. Content to sit in third.
Bishop's Bay
Is right behind him in fourth, but it's an unopposed leader right now. Mika brings them out of the chute.
is up there.
Up with the Aqueduct
Right. And it seemed like their Phileas Fogg like had an opportunity to be in the mix early, and I don't know, just like didn't want to be in the mix.
Back to Crazy Mason, and the
Right.
killer is Brazenly. Mika went
And again, like I said about Crazy Mason, like you're just 10 lengths off the lead, and there's just way too much to do.
Second, Pentathlon patiently ridden at the rail in third. No move yet from Phileas Fogg in fourth as Mika's trying to upset the field. Crazy Mason's the gray starts to commence the rally.
Right. So if you're looking at this and you have this in your head, right, and you have Bishop's Bay in that position, and you figure he's going to be able to run down a weakening Mika because of the again, your normal handicapping process alongside your normal handicapping process alongside the pace points, right? Because if you look and you have this 4, you figure, okay, he can wear down this rank of a 7, and you saw Crazy Mason just kind of like, this left him a whole world of things to do, but was able to somehow finish third, and probably ran. I didn't look at the numbers, but probably ran the fastest final quarter and half mile out of anybody in that race, but left himself 10 or 12 lengths to make up, and was just too much for him to overcome. So again, it's not saying that Crazy Mason is going to finish first. Doc Sullivan is going to finish second. Brazenly is going to finish third. This is just a rank of who we think is going to be running the best in the late stages of the race. Now you have to factor that in with your normal handicapping process, factoring in the early pace setup, where you think horses are going to be on the track, race shape, trips, and all of that to allow you to kind of get a more complete picture, and then decide where you think these pace points can assist. And I thought that these two races were pretty solid examples of how to use pace points alongside your normal PPs, whether that's DRF or Brisnet, to identify some decent winners throughout the day. Especially too, if you look down here, this Sunday boy who won the finale, late rank of 3, and that was a pretty impressive late kick from this horse yesterday. So just saying, just saying, just saying. So hopefully you had a pretty good day yesterday at the Big A. Pace points available every weekend at passthewire.com. Hopefully you've been using it. Hopefully you've been trying it out. If you have any questions, you could always ask me or John. just reach out through email or through YouTube. Always happy to answer questions, but I'll just give you a quick tutorial. I'll keep doing these every week to help people get up to speed and feel more confident in using it, right? It's like, oh, there's this new data product out, but you know, you don't know how to use it, right? So why are you gonna spend some time and money on something that you don't know how to use? So hopefully you get a little bit more education behind it, a little bit more knowledge around it. It'll be easier to understand, and you'll be more likely to participate and use it. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. Um, I think the Kentucky Derby radar show is kicking off this week. John's hosting that, so be sure to subscribe to the Past the Wire TV YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of that. Like I said last week, I gave out a Mage Kentucky Derby future wager, like February of that year. We were talking about Sierra Leone before the Remsen of, whatever that was that 23? So lots of value in the Kentucky Derby radar show. So be sure that you're checking that out. And yeah, check out Pace Points right at the top of pastthewire.com. If you got any questions about anything, we're always available. Happy to assist. Thank you for tuning in this weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.
Go.
It's simplification and Javier. Here comes journalism, here comes sovereignty, and they square off, head into the final furlong. Sovereignty wins the Derby!
You're watching Past the Wire TV. Hit that like button and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.